Join us as we dive into the history, hauntings, and high strangeness of the world to try to better understand the paranormal. I will be your guide. I am paranormal researcher and investigator Eric Freeman-Sims. Welcome to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Today we're chatting with Caden and Allisa Mask of Southern Ascension Paranormal. We're going to chat about some of the locations they've investigated and their experiences with the paranormal. Hey, Allisa. Hey, Caden. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate having us.
I wanted to have you on the show because I cold emailed y'all about some research for my new book that I'm working on, and we got to talking, and I wanted to have you on the show.
No, we were excited.
We were a little blown away.
Yeah, a little blown away.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was just a very random email. I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see how this goes, and then here we are today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how the paranormal world works out like that. The weird synchronicities, like.
Yeah,
it truly does.
I mean, the whole paranormal community, it's all about networking anyway, especially with podcasts and, doing books and that type of stuff. So, and even investigating, it's good to network with other people and know people and have, people you can call for specific things and things like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it really, there's a place for everybody within the field, no matter if you're starting out or if you're a veteran or, if you're a skeptic, there is quite literally a place for everybody within the field.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I talk about that a lot here on the show about, who am I to tell you're wrong for what you experience? Because I don't want anybody telling me I'm wrong for what I experience. And so,
right.
Yeah, and so if you want to go out and be a weekend warrior ghost hunter, do that. You want to go join a team and be more serious about it, do that. But do whatever makes you happy.
I agree, especially in this field. Like I have, I kind of raise the eyebrow with stuff like that sometimes because people give other people so many different kinds of a hard time in the field. And I don't get it because ultimately, in my eyes, we're all like in the same little river going to the same direction, or at least we should be. We're all looking for some sort of answer. We're all looking for some sort of need in it.
Validation.
Like some sort of validation in it or something. And
right.
We're all kind of going the same direction. I don't really understand why it matters so much to people how you get there. Like, or what tools you use to get there. Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's like anything else. Unfortunately, people have egos and things like that. But but unfortunately, I'm the only person I'm in competition with is myself. I'm just trying to do me the best I can do me.
Yep.
It took us a long time to get to where we're at, and we're right there with you. We're in competition with no one. We do this for us and for our private clients. That's
right.
it. We're not out to prove anything to anybody. We're not out to change people's minds about, their religion or the paranormal field in itself. We're just there to make somebody's day a little bit more peaceful and better.
If we can. Yeah.
Yeah, and y'all are, like you're saying, y'all do private investigations. That's not everybody's thing. That's never been kind of my thing. I've done them, but also worked for 15 years, 20 years in medicine, 15 years in the ambulance. That was enough helping people for me. That's why I've never really done private investigations.
I can see that. I can see that.
We started out, when we decided to do this on a more professional platform, we started out really hot and heavy with private clients. That's mainly what we did, between private clients, private readings, and, basically what some would call a counseling session or event session. I mean, that's what we started out doing. And then, you get a handful of clients that want you to be a show pony, or they make up this big elaborate story just to get you out there and then put you in an unsafe situation, and it kind of burns you out. And we have backed away from private clients for the most part. We give them to other teams, but if it's a serious case where there's children involved and being hurt or something that other teams reach out to us for help, then we'll take it on. But it's very few and far between with private clients now and our.
For a while, it was an every weekend thing. It seemed like when we were driving, from our home, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours one way for private clients, and we do everything that we do for free.
Right.
So, that it gets expensive, but the complaint was, like Caden said, when you you do that enough times, you kind of get burned. And it's not like you went there and didn't get anything. That's not my thing. When you get there and it turns out that what they actually need is some sort of other help, but they're not open to listening to it. They just want you to kind of be a show pony and give them, a reason as to why everything in their life's going chaotic, but it's not the one that they want. Then it gets old really, really quick. That part of it does.
Yeah, especially with dealing with people with mental health issues, and you got people out there that just want attention, and then a few private cases that I've done were really frustrating because the people didn't want to listen to what we had to say. They wanted to listen to the Psychic Friends Network from California or some shit,
Yep.
Right, 1-800 Cleo.
On TV.
Yeah,
we ran into them, where they, Alyssa's a medium, and they would just want her out there just to give them a reading as to if their significant other was cheating, or is their financial situation going to be better, or this, that, and the other. We're like, we're not here for this. This could have been done over the phone if that's what you wanted. But yet you wasted our weekend and you wasted 10 hours out of our day for us to come here for this, when you could have just been honest to begin with.
Right. Well, and I don't have a problem with mediums and stuff, but it's different to have a medium on site and actually investigating than to just have your mom's friend who lives halfway across the country.
Yeah. That's why I said you have your 1-800 Cleo, and then you have, now that TikTok is a thing, everybody's a medium, or everybody's a tarot card reader, or everybody's an empath, or
right.
Some of that I agree with.
I mean, there are some legitimate people out there, but as a whole, about 90% of the people that you're going to come in contact to say they're gifted or not gifted.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that, but I think watching like a unity of it's pretty cool. But I mean,
I guess
there's a difference to me, like in what I do, and there's a lot of different things when it comes to mediumship is the umbrella term. So there's a lot of different things that different people really are capable of, and some people are not good or comfortable, doing the paranormal side of mediumship. They're not, and that's okay. But like he said, there's a difference in somebody sitting in California on the phone with you telling you that your significant other is doing X, Y, and Z and making up lotto numbers and doing this and doing that versus having someone come in your house that you lied to that is capable of picking up on the fact that you lied to them.
Yeah.
Which makes for an uncomfortable situation.
Well, one of the situations that I dealt with a private client was with the Psychic Friends Network. This particular medium wanted to tell her that there was something demonic in her house and was trying to hurt her 2-year-old.
Wow.
And that's all she wanted to listen to. And when we didn't back that up because we found evidence of probably more of a residual from the land, because this was a newer house, but she wanted to listen to the hype because her and her mom watched Ghost Adventures and all these other shows about demons. And so when we didn't give her the answer that she wanted, she didn't want to, she actually never even called us back to come show her the evidence that we had caught on that particular case. But
yeah.
Well, I mean, we can relate to that because although Alyssa is gifted, we don't just go off that. I mean, before she's anything, she's an investigator. We're going to try to prove or disprove anything that's there.
Right.
Now, she randomly picks up on a name. She'll be like, okay, she'll write the name down and tell me. And then when I go back and do research, if I can validate it, awesome. If I can't, well, all right then.
Right. And talking about mediums, like I've been an empath my entire life. And there are a lot of people out there, like you were saying, that claim to be mediums, empath or whatever. And that's their business. But I can tell you right now that if I could get rid of the empathic shit, I would get rid of it.
Like I would sell it with no receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Because sometimes it is just a pain in the ass. It's uncomfortable sometimes, and it's taken me, I'm almost 40, and it's taken me this long to figure it out enough to get a handle on it so it's not driving me crazy.
Right. I understand.
Yeah, so the people that are out there, claiming to be something they're not, like I said, I can't tell if they are or not. That's their business, but it is a little irritating to somebody who is an empath and
actually struggle.
Yeah,
and
struggle with it.
Yeah, I get it.
I guess where my frustration with it is the ones that are usually the frauds are the ones that are charging an insanely amount of money.
Right.
And I guess that's where my frustration stems from.
Well, see, the one and only real issue I have with it is the ones like what you said. She told this lady that there is a demon in her house that's, after her 2-year-old child. And you don't really ever know what is the last straw for someone to do something that other people deem crazy. And if you really have no idea what you're talking about and you're telling people things like that, like I said, you don't ever know what someone's last straw could possibly be. And if you're fraudulently giving out false information like that, you can push someone to doing drastic and dangerous things. And that bothers me. That's unsafe and it's dangerous. And
it's just like the case of the girl where her friend murdered her because they were told that she was a demon.
Yeah.
And they killed her.
Yeah.
I mean, it can easily escalate, and I don't think a lot of people fully understand how easy you can push another human being to do something or persuade them without the intention of persuading them to do something like that, and it's severely dangerous. That does bother me a lot. I don't watch any shows like that. I don't follow anybody on social media like that. It's just not my forte. Because it's just not. I'm not somebody who's easily kept quiet. So to stay in my lane, I just stay away. I stay away.
Yeah, one of the unfortunate evils of doing a podcast is I have to be on at least paranormal groups, and so
yeah.
I've had to learn over the past couple of years. Just scroll on by. Not my circus, not my monkeys.
That's how Caden is.
That's me.
Yep, he is the more public side of us. Because, he's just way better at it.
I tried it's been a couple of years. I wanted to know at least one group out of every state to where if we got an email or a phone call, I had at least one team that I could call that I at least trusted somewhat or understood how they ran things.
Yeah.
And in doing that, I've met some amazing people and I've met some unamazing people. And there's different strokes for different folks. You just learn how people do stuff and you learn what they believe in and how they present themselves, and you just learn what to do and what not to do, for me personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it comes to investigating and dealing with people in general. Yeah. There's certain ways to do it. And unfortunately, there are teams out there that have soured locations for the rest of us because they don't go in respectful and things like that, unfortunately. But that just, that's part of life in general. It's not just the paranormal world. We've all worked with those people that were like, whatever field you work in, you've looked at them and said, why do you work here? Like, how did you get a job in this field?
That's me. Oh my God, how did you get here?
Like, you're the reason for the safety meeting this morning.
Yeah, and in medicine, from my vantage point, working in medicine for so long, people put medical people on a pedestal, and I'm like, I've met doctors, nurses, and medics that I would not take care of my dog. So just because they're in a certain position doesn't mean they're good at what they do. I can tell you the same nurse and doctor and medic that made C's and D's, they have the same degrees as the ones that made A's. So
yeah. Yep.
But yeah, the paranormal world, like I said, it's just like anything else. You got these drama queens.
And bad.
Yeah. And there's, I think that I don't want the listeners to think that it's all bad because we're kind of bitching here, but the majority of people, 90% of people in the paranormal world are good people and out to do good things, and they have good intentions. But
general rule of thumb: if they are not out in the media publicly and have a huge audience, you would pay attention to those because they're the ones that are probably going to be the better of the team. And that's just my own personal opinion. Like the underdogs usually turn out to be the better
team.
They're the better people for me dealing with the public.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely for like private investigations because they're not out for any kind of publicity. They're just doing it to help people. Yeah, yeah. And that's I do public events, but all the public events that I do, I don't ever make any money off of them. I do it to help these struggling historic sites, bring in money, and not even for me to be out there because I want some sort of recognition or anything like that. I got plenty of that, on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so, but if I can use some of that to bring people in, then I want to use it for good and not being I'm not an attention whore,
Right. No, I mean, I don't want the listeners to sit there and think that we're saying if they're big, they're bad. Because
right.
It's not. You're going to, like we all have been saying thus far, you're always going to have bad apples. Like that, it's inevitable. But a lot of people, when they're looking for somebody to help them, they want to get the person that has 1 million followers or a very high, 100,000 followers that do these elaborate locations. And if you're a private client, those are probably the ones that you're not going to have the best time getting a hold of.
Right.
So don't be scared to go to somebody that only has a couple thousand followers, but they're always active and they're, doing like a little education show once a week or something. Watch their stuff. And if it vibes with you, then awesome. Reach out. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
And also, there are plenty of paranormal teams out there. Definitely go get a second opinion. And if somebody is wanting to charge you to come in, investigate your house and help you, run the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Exactly.
Because there are shysters out there that will take your money to come in and they'll, if you're paying them, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, what they think you want to hear.
Yeah.
So Allisa, we'll start with you. You're a medium, but how did you get into investigating the paranormal? And did you develop your medium gifts early or kind of as you've gotten older?
The medium side led to the paranormal side. The medium side sounds very cliche. I have quite literally been this way my entire life for as long as I can remember. My parents remember a lot more of it from my younger years than I do. But like my very first memory of things that were real to me, but nobody else could really see or hear or whatnot. I've seen, a lot of different things growing up, heard a lot of different things. People were always around me that I was never afraid of them, per se. I never seen like this and stuff like that. It was people, and I was about 4. And my baby brother was a little under 4 months old at the time. And a man came and spoke to me and told me exactly what to tell my parents. And I told my parents, and they were pretty shocked, but they didn't dismay it because even up until this time in my life, I had said and done things that they knew what it was. And I told my parents that the next day my baby brother would pass away, and told them exactly what this man told me to tell them, and it happened. And from that point on, there are a lot of vivid things that I remember, but from that point down, age-wise, there are a lot of things my parents remember. Some people don't believe that it's genetic, and for me, I do. And I'm not the only one, I'm the only one in this generation of my family, but not the only one in my family. In my family, it skips every other generation, and I got it in mine. I mean, it's kind of how it was. And I've literally been this way my entire life. And the older I got, the more I learned to control it, because of where I live. It was hard for my parents to help me. They did try, as parents living in the Southern Bible Belt of the United States.
Yeah.
In a very, very small town, their options were very limited because I was raised in a time where we didn't have cell phones and internet. You had the yellow pages in a house phone. We didn't have cable. So, there was just very limited options. Like one of the first things I remember my parents doing was outside of the church. I didn't mean like outside of the church, like they took me to church to get me help. They didn't. They knew better than that. They didn't. They did go outside of our church community in our small town and into a town over from us, and where they knew a seventh son of a seventh son. And although, his path was much more different than what I had going on in my life, they were just kind of hopeful, that maybe he would know someone or, anything.
Yeah.
And he did. He put them in contact with another lady who was much, 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 much older than me. much, much older than my parents. And she passed away about 2 years after us actually getting to meet her for the first time. So that really didn't go anywhere. But well, I've been this way my whole life. The only one in my family, in this generation of my family. And then that led me into the paranormal. I didn't know, and up until I guess about 6 years ago, I did not know that people done things like that with paranormal, like it was a whole thing.
Yeah.
I just thought people like me kind of stay to themselves and only talk to their family and their very, very close friends about it, that type of thing, you know? Like, I didn't even know that readings were called readings. Like, I genuinely did not know that. Didn't know that that was a thing. And then about a year into me and Caden being together, we ran across someone who was in my long lost distant family who was doing like a paranormal group thing. And I was like, this is really awesome. And they had a medium on their team and they were calling her a medium. And I was like, well, this is really cool, you know? And we kind of linked up with them and it kind of went on from there. And then I met several other people who were capable of what I was capable of that understood it in so many more different ways than what I had been taught in the very small box that I had. I mean, I'm not just taking away or lessening what my parents tried to do. They just really didn't know what to do.
Right.
So they did the best they could, but there wasn't a whole lot they could do, and the internet wasn't a thing. So then when I finally did get to meet people who were capable of it, it was really freaking awesome to talk to people and see how vibrant they were and comfortable they were with public things and all the, it was just like a whole new learning experience for me, which was really awesome. And we just kind of took it and ran with it, and here we are.
Yeah. Two of the things that you said, I wanted to talk about a little more because I think it runs in families as well. Because in my family, my grandmother who raised me was very much empathic. And then I have a few other family members that are too. They're not as open about it as I am. And I was really kind of like you. I kind of kept to myself about it. For me, it was for the simple fact that I was afraid that people would make fun of me and think I'm crazy. And, but once I started putting out there that I'm empathic and I have these experiences, then I met more people like me. And it made me validate my own experiences. They're like, oh, I had the same thing happen to me. I just thought I was weird, you know? And so we end up comparing notes and being like, no, I have the same thing. Like, you know, this is, and this is how I deal with it. And we kind of help each other figure out how to deal with all this crazy shit. But yeah, I understand. I grew up in the Bible Belt too, in the middle of Tennessee. Y'all are in Mississippi, right?
Yes. I don't know if you know where Marietta, Mississippi is, but that's where I grew up. And there's literally a four-way. Well, like that's it. There's a four-way and one gas station, and that's it. There was no library. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, we were a very church-going family. My parents were religious. They were raised religious. It was a family thing. But my parents did not necessarily, in my opinion, fit in the box of the other people I went to church with. They were not closed off to only what the church taught. You know,
But that's because your dad had a lot of indigenous culture instilled in him.
He did. They were both raised from their roots. I mean, you know, like Caden said, my dad was raised inside of a lot of indigenous culture, and his grandmother, you know, he stayed with her for 5 months out of the year, every year growing up, and it was just a very natural thing for him.
Yeah.
So even though they made their lives here and they were part of a church and regular people in a church, that was not the only thing that we were brought up to know. So we were pretty well rounded as far as, you know, the culture that was running within our family, and, you know, how open of a floor it was for me to communicate about what I was going through. And I mean, they did make sure I knew that there were just certain people I could not speak to about it, or they would have to answer questions, and they made sure that I understood that it wasn't because they were ashamed of me. They just didn't want people to treat me differently.
Right.
And they knew that they would. And it wasn't because there was anything wrong with me. It was because people just didn't understand and things like that. And they never made me feel like anything was wrong with me ever, or that I was wrong for things that I couldn't control. But like I said, we didn't have cable. We didn't have the internet. So until probably like my last year of high school, I didn't even know that you could get in like a chat room and actually talk to people and find things out like that. And then my mom found it, and I got in a few chat rooms with people that were like me, which I was monitored by my parents with that. But I mean, it was just a very unique time in my life, you know. And then I met people, you know, like you said, and I had several mentors because it was like I couldn't get enough of learning that there was so much more other than what I knew.
Other than just talking to
other than
people.
Just talking and seeing people in spirit, I did not know there was so much more until I got into
heavily evolved.
Yeah, like into meeting people that were actually doing this inside the paranormal, and then I met other mediums, and it went on and on and on from there.
Yeah, I've talked about it quite a bit here because I think there's a lot of kids that are taught out of empath or mediumship or whatever their abilities are. And so it's good that you had parents that kind of, they protected you, but at the same time kind of fostered that ability and you know, basically told you weren't crazy or you weren't seeing things that you,
right.
You know, this is just something that happens, that some people have this gift. And yeah, the especially in the South, the religious community, a lot of them believe that, you know, everything paranormal is demonic. And so
yeah,
if you would have got around certain people and they found out about, you know, the fact that you're a medium, they probably would have thought you were possessed, you know.
Oh, they probably would have tried to get my parents to see me. Like, yeah, they probably would have.
Yeah. So, Caden, how did you get into the paranormal and investigating?
Well, I grew up in a very religious and sheltered home. We never talked about things like that. It was everything was the devil or of the devil until I was in high school. I was 17. I'd already been kicked out of the house, and I was living with my girlfriend at the time there at her place. And she was not the most respectful person when you went to like cemeteries or graveyards.
Yeah.
And one night she decided she wanted to go to the cabin, and my cabin was right next to a graveyard. So we went out there with a couple of friends, and she was just being very obnoxious and rude. And I stayed at the gate because that graveyard always freaked me out. And when we go back home, and she ended up with an attachment, but instead of it staying with her, it linked to me because spiritually and emotionally, I was just very ignorant of things of that nature. So I was the easier target. So it linked to me. And for 8 months and some odd days, I was tormented by this negative energy. It was just entity. Like it was non-human. I know that now. And at the time, I felt like it wasn't. But now that I know for a fact it was not a human entity, never had been human before. And for 7 months, like it started out very slow. If you ever listen to anybody that was truly possessed, they tell you the same thing. It started out very minute. I had knocks on the walls and just eerie feelings. And then it progressed into nightmares. And then from the nightmares, it progressed into day terrors where you would see things at the corner of your eye and poltergeist activity where things would fly out of the cupboard and hit you. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And about the 6-month mark is whenever the sleep paralysis really started. And with the sleep paralysis came the insomnia because I was so terrified to go to sleep. Because when I slept, I had nightmares. And they were lucid dreams. So whatever happened to me in my dream, you know, if I got hit or bit or scratched in my dream, I woke up with those marks.
Wow.
And so I would not sleep. So I started hallucinating during the day. And then I started getting attacked during the day. And about the 7-month mark is whenever I started losing time. I would remember going to the bathroom or going to the kitchen for something. And then the next thing I know, my girlfriend's pulling back in from work, and it's, 4 hours later or 6 hours later. Or I would go to lay down to go to sleep, and then I would wake up, so many hours, and I'd be standing in the middle of the yard and have no recollection of what happened. It got really, really bad, and I dropped weight. I mean, I was already a small guy back then. I was probably 150 at my heaviest. before it started. And then in that 8 months, I dropped down to almost 100 pounds. I might have been just a little over 100. So people thought I was on drugs.
Yeah.
I genuinely looked like it. I mean, I had the bags under my eyes. I was skin and bones, or my body skin was just kind of gray because I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't eating. So the ladies at work, I had at the time, I worked at the hospital, and a couple of ladies, they kept trying to ask me what was going on. I just kept telling them, if I told you, you won't believe me and you'll think I'm crazy. Well, that's when the 7th month mark hit. Like I said, I was hallucinating during the day, and I would be back there at work doing something, and then I would see this thing coming at me, and I would kind of screech and like just in utter terror, just stand there and shake. And they are just kind of like, look, Caden, we know this psychic lady that's down in Tennessee. We've already paid your money. We're taking you when we get off work today. Me, I'm like, you're crazy. Those things aren't real. Psychics are fake. I've seen the 1-800 Clio commercials just like everybody else. But they took me, and as soon as I walked in, the lady, she just looked at me and she's like, oh, you poor baby. I instantly just started crying.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't help it, just uncontrollable. When she said, oh, you poor baby, it was just kind of like, oh, you have no idea. And I broke down and told her everything, and she read tea leaves or teagrams, and she read me, and she was telling me everything. And at the end, she was like, okay, you're going to go here, and you're going to buy this spice, and you're going to do this. And when you do this, you don't need to be in the house. You need to leave for the rest of the night. It's like, okay. So I go home that night, and I stayed at a friend's house, and I came back. I told my girlfriend what I had to do. So we go, and it was the spice marjoram, and we put it at the front and the back door. But because my masculinity was challenged during all of that, I decided that I was going to stay because I wanted to confront whatever it is that's been tormenting me. So I put it out, and that was probably the worst 4 hours of my life at that time. It was like the movie Poltergeist on crack.
Yeah.
I had knives thrown at us. The house, which was a trailer, it literally rattled where I thought that the trailer was going to just collapse. And I ended up getting fully possessed at that time during all of this. And I don't remember anything until I had a split second of clarity where I had a knife in my hand and I was facing the wall, but the knife was towards me. Like, I guess I was going to unalive myself. And I just kind of came through on that moment, and I ran outside, and that was it. We didn't go back that night. We went back the next day, and it's like nothing ever happened to the house. The house was perfectly clean. The ominous feeling was gone. And it was like I could breathe a fresh air for once. And I never had any problems after that. And because of the psychic lady, I decided right then and there that I was going to do everything that I could to learn about the paranormal so that I could help the next person, because I never wanted anybody to go through what I went through. And that's been 14 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been in it ever since.
Wow, that's an incredible story. That's some amazing to go through. And now what could you go through that would top that? Out investigating. I'm sure you've had experiences, but I'm just saying that's pretty crazy for that.
Like, honestly, it for my first, that's what everybody's like, when they're like, what was your first paranormal experience? I'm like, I don't have the cute little story now. You better roast some marshmallows and sit down and get your favorite blanket, because mine's
Right.
not a cute story. It's not a cuddly story. It was, everybody's worst fear when they're in the paranormal. And we have been to Monroe House. Has probably been the only house that we have been to that has made me nervous. But it sounds bad for me to say it like this, but it's like, since my first experience was so traumatic, it's like I'm numb to everything else after that, because it's like I went through that, so you don't scare me. type of ordeal. I mean, I've met some things that have unnerved me and have made me extremely alert. Where I'm like, okay, it's been a hot minute since I've dealt with this or felt this, but yeah, it's been a wild roller coaster ride. But I mean, I really wouldn't change anything else of it or from it at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, at this point, you know, especially experiences like something like that, I mean, it kind of shaped you into the person that you are now. And so it's hard to say, yeah, I would go back and change it, even though it was traumatic at the time. But you wouldn't be the same person you are now if that hadn't happened to you.
No. I think if I had, you know, like everybody's normal first paranormal experience of, oh yeah, I lived in a haunted house, you know, our ghost name was George or Karen, and I would tell them to shut the door, and they would shut the door, or they would flicker the lights. Like, you know, some days I wish that was my first experience. Like, I wouldn't be so traumatic because, you know, I miss getting scared, like the scare factor. Like, when I want to go somewhere and something happened and me jump and be like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
you got me there, Skippy."
I mean, you've done that a few times, but I think a lot of that is because you're a husband and a dad.
But a lot of that is because you're with me, so it's more like the husband, like a hoo-wah.
Yeah, like, I don't think
What you doing?
I don't think it's so much about you're scaring me. I think it's more like, look, don't make me look type of way in here.
Yeah. Don't make me look like a wimp now. Don't do that. Yeah, no, it's but I don't think if that experience had not happened to me, I wouldn't have went on the spiritual journey that I went on.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have learned all the stuff that I know about or know how to do.
I don't think you ever would have stepped outside of the box.
I would have never stepped out of my comfort zone, and I would probably still be a farmer.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of living day to day.
Yeah.
You would have just stuck to what you knew.
But, you know, now I met awesome people. We have, you know, our little family all around the world, our parafamily all around the world, and we have chapters, and we have our own mentors individually, and then we have our students of ours that we teach.
Yeah.
That we have counseled to or taught them different ways to investigate or what to do if you encounter a private client with a different religious path, different things that you can do from there. And yeah, I don't think if mine would have been that traumatic, I would have never went down this path.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible to just kind of be thrown into it without asking for it. Because I think most of us, I mean, for me, it was just kind of a organic progression, I think, into more and more into the paranormal, you know. But to just be thrown into it without, you know, just head first and like, here you go.
Yeah.
You know, I got to learn to deal with
Here you go
this.
on a silver platter, you know, have at it, buddy.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
And to this day, like, I'm still amazed out of all that. The girl that brought it home never had anything happen to her. The only thing she witnessed was everything that happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, she never once had a nightmare or sleep paralysis or even a bite mark. Because that was the worst for me, was the bite marks on my back and my ribs.
Yeah.
And she never once had any of that. And I'm just sitting here like, you're the one that brought it home. Why are you doing this to you? Why's it got to be me?
Right. What I love about you telling the whole story was that you never used the D word once.
No, I mean, but I guess that's my religious, spiritual beliefs. I don't use the word demon because most people, demons come from Catholic Church, you know, Christianity in general. And if you want to say something is demonic, you're going to know that it's demonic. And that's just how I feel, because you're not going to question. It's 3 scratches. Yeah, that could be demonic. No, you're going to see it. And I mean, it's not going to be just some scratches. Like, your head's going to get bashed off of a couple of walls probably.
Yeah.
But I've never encountered anything that I would say was demonic. I just hate that term. I don't like negative entities.
I don't like how easily it's thrown around.
Well, it's like fear mongering.
Yeah.
As soon as you say it, it instills fear, and I don't like that.
And then, like, how easy people think it is, you know, for things to just turn into a demon, or like, if it's not a human entity, then it has to be a demon.
Yeah.
Type thing. Then I'm like, no.
It's just an umbrella term that I wish was never an umbrella term.
Yeah.
I wish that it was only used in the proper context.
Well, not many people are sitting in front of a Catholic priest
Well, not just that. We're in the South. The majority of the world is Christian based, so they know what demons are as far as the context, like they're of the devil or Lucifer. Right. But they never get a taste out of the paranormal field, so they never get to learn what the difference is between just a pissed off human spirit,
right,
or fae folk, or gnome, or just a trickster spirit like a poltergeist, or just residual energy that's playing funny games. They can make you feel weird. Yeah. But then you go back to the scientific part of it, and there are people out there who are EMF sensitive, and if they get around, any kind of junction box or breaker box, and there's an insane amount of EMF coming off of that naturally, it's going to make them feel sick and nauseated. And a lot of people don't learn about all that. So when they start feeling something other than good, it's demon. It's a demon.
Right.
I'm like, no, Betsy, it's not a demon. That's just the junction box right above your head.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'm a little bit sensitive to EMF. The team that I investigate a lot with, Medics for Paranormal, we always put out the EMF pumps. And if I hold one of those in my hand, whenever it's on, the top of my head tingles, like my scalp tingles every time.
I mean, and a lot of people never think about that.
Right.
And, I'm not going to sit here and say that I knew it from the jump, because I sure didn't until probably 2 years ago when I started listening to another podcast. And I'm like, really? And I started researching.
Yeah, and I've seen like a EMF spike over 1,000 and maintain off of just a Wi-Fi router for internet. And that is an insane amount of EMF. And they've done that with the experiment they called the God helmet, where they've pumped people's brains full of EMF, and people hallucinate, auditory visual hallucinations. And especially the longer that you're exposed to it, the more of an effect it'll have. Problems with sleeping and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. That's why, I don't downgrade people, because we still use them to have spirits encounter with them. But like the EMF meters and the K2 meters, they're for searching out for EMF, not for ghosts, but for, like your Wi-Fi routers, your junction boxes, your wires going to your ceiling fan.
Right.
If that's why everybody needs to learn the safe numbers. Because if you're reading it and your number's within proper range, then if somebody is feeling nauseous or whatever the case may be, then you can say, okay, well, you're not EMF sensitive, because this is in a normal working range,
right,
where it shouldn't affect you right now.
Yeah.
Or just document it.
Yeah. And I was talking to Dave Schrader on the show here a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about, he was talking about how EMF meters and stuff come into the field of paranormal investigating to rule out stuff like that, not necessarily even to interact with spirits. It was more to use those tools for the way they were meant to be used, like you're saying, to rule out EMF as a possibility. We found that sometimes you can communicate with spirits that way too. They can mess with those fields.
Manipulate it.
Yeah.
And that's where everybody's like, well, you have one. I'm like, yeah, but I'm also, me personally, not downgrading anybody that uses them, but me personally, the reason why I use it is because we are a very basic team. We do not spend thousands or hundreds of dollars on equipment. We already bought an EMF meter to help us, get our baselines of a location, so that we know if their wires are properly connected or if they got a malfunction somewhere. And because it already changes colors and makes pretty little sounds, we went ahead and used it for that.
Right.
But we never forgot the original uses of it. And, like you said, some people just go get it and they forget.
We're real bad about trying to debunk the EMF. Like, I will try purposely so hard to make that thing go off. So hard. I'll turn my flash on. The whole nine.
Yeah. And that's like, REM pods as well, since they run off EMF. Even your cell phone, somebody sends you a text while you're investigating, you can set off a REM pod, because that signal is just coming through that antenna. Even though you go up to it and you physically have to get really close to the antenna to make it go off, but you can have things like walkie-talkies if you have those, your cell phone. And so the only time that I've ever really lent credence to using K2s and EMF meters, like the Mel meter, which is another one, is when we've had an anomaly. And actually this happened at the Thomas house a few times up in Red Building Springs, but in the middle of the hallway, you could go all the way down to the floor and it would stop the signal would stop about a foot off the floor, and you could go all the way around it. It was just like a bubble of EMF. And there was we went close to the walls and the lights, and, when you get away from this bubble, the meter would stop going off. And so I've seen some of those anomalies where I can't say that it's a spirit, but it's definitely something out of the norm.
It's questionable.
Yeah.
When we're similar, we very frank people. So when we're investigating, it has to be a direct answer to whatever question we ask. So if you're a female, make it go orange. If you're a male, make it go red. Well, if it just flickers, I'm not counting that. Like, no, you're going to have to turn it on and leave it on this color before I take you seriously.
Right.
The same goes with the all the different ghost boxes and spirit boxes out there in the world too. If I'm sitting there and I'm asking you what your name is and you tell me purple, I'm not going to go on a train of questions like, oh, is your favorite color purple?
Right.
I'm going to be like, no, what is your name? And if it says purple again, I'll be like, so your name is purple? And if I don't get a yes or no, I'm not going to, keep going. I'm just going to keep asking the question until I get an answer or try something else to get my answer.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I like the Estes method too, is because the person is just shouting out what they hear. And sometimes it does work really well where you do get direct answers to the questions that you're asking. I've had, plenty of other times where you don't get anything. It doesn't make sense whatsoever to what you're asking.
Right. Allisa can do the Estes method with our SB7, and she can sit there and listen to it, and I can ask questions, and it works like gold. If I've tried to do the Estes method with, the earphones in, listen to the SB7, I cannot hear squat. I can't even make out hardly anything at all. So what I do instead is we just did this at the Old South Pittsburgh hospital that we just went to. I just blindfold myself and I disorient myself either by just going in circles till I'm dizzy as hell or what other case may be, and have her lead me to different rooms, and I'll tell her how I feel or what I'm envisioning, or if I hear something, then tell her. And while we're at Old South, me and another lady did it, and I ended up with a very pissed off spirit, and he was a drug addict there at one time, and he was responsible for dealing drugs to other patients
who were trying to get clean.
Yeah, who were trying to get clean.
And there's we didn't know this, but there's actual record of him and him being in significant trouble
for doing
that inside the facility with people who were in detox.
Yeah. So with mine and Alyssa's background with, overcoming drugs and addiction, with me going in there, it made him mad because he was dealing to people, and I'm the one that stops people from or gives people help.
Yeah.
When they're on drugs. So he ended up not liking me, and we had a standoff for, it seemed like 30 minutes, but it was probably like 5 minutes. And he ended up scratching me on the back of my neck, which we've got that on camera. And I'm still blindfolded at this time, and I'm telling him exactly what it looks like, what he's doing. And we had 3 gifted people Saturday with us, and they were just like, you can see them on the camera. They weren't saying anything, but on my camera, you see them pointing to where this guy is, and I'm blindfolded. And I'm like, he's right here. Like, he's right here. Like, I feel like he's about to bite me in the ear. And they're just shaking their heads like, yep, that's it. And I would turn around and I would tell everybody, where a window was or where the doorway was, or when a human walked in, or when, a spirit walked in. And I was just pointing and telling them, and it's all on camera. Is really cool. But that's how I communicate or do my Estes method, is just by being blindfolded I at least blindfold myself like 20 minutes before I do my experiment, so that my ears and stuff heighten up better or heighten up more. And then I go on my little adventures.
Yeah, I think if you have, from my experience anyway, if you're an empath or a medium, I don't think it's the voices from the radio coming through that you hear. I think you hear the voices in the white noise.
Yeah.
And the people that are more sensitive and in tune tend to do better Estes methods that way.
Yeah.
Just from my experience. Now I've seen people who aren't, don't claim to be any sensitive in any way, and they'll get things. because sometimes certain spirits want to talk to certain people. That's
Right.
weird, but that's the way it is. And so those people get stuff too. But yeah, the more in tune you are spiritually, if you have a gift or whatever you want to call it, it seems to work out better.
Yeah, see, and I'm the one I always say I'm lame and ungifted. But I mean,
You're not, though.
sometimes spirit just really vibes with me and not Alyssa, and so they want to show me pictures when I'm blindfolded or doing some other type of experiment. Like they want to show me pictures or talk to me and show me things, and I get overwhelmed with it because it doesn't happen often. So when it does, it's a lot for somebody. And I remember the first time I did it at the Monroe House, I had just graduated my 8-week class that I had been taking for astral traveling and some other stuff. And it was my first time investigating since learning all this new stuff. I was like, I really want to try it in the basement. And we go. And after I did it, I just looked at Alyssa and I'm like, I am so sorry for always pushing you. I now understand what you're talking about, that you were just drained. Because it was only 30 minutes that I stayed under. But I was ready for sleep. Like, I could not hold my eyes open. I felt drunk. That's how drained I was.
Yeah, I've found that it can be draining, especially if you, because I guess in a way, I mean, you're kind of inviting them in with the SS method, and so they can definitely siphon off your energy to leave you feeling just drained.
Right. Instead of going like full trance mode, I mean, it's more or less like a moderate channeling where you are, like you said, you are allowing them to use your brain or your ears or whatever to show you or let you feel certain things. But you're also keeping control over your motor function so that if something were to go wrong, you can quickly ground yourself and force them out of your personal bubble.
Yeah. I've also been in locations that I just kind of feel that way from being at the location. And I don't know if it's because they know that I can feel them or their energy or, with the empath stuff. And so they just kind of latch onto me a little bit more than other people. But yeah, I've had that happen at a few different locations. The worst one I ever experienced was Octagon Hall in Franklin, Kentucky. I actually, we were supposed to do 2-night investigation up there. And I made it through the first night and I came home because I wasn't feeling well. And I made it through the whole first night. And the next day I was sick as a dog. Like I had a head cold the next day. That's how much it kind of drained me. And the next day I'm like, I called them and I was like, I'm not coming back for the second night. Like I'm really sick. My head's all stopped up and I'm coughing and it just didn't feel well. But 2 days later I was fine. It's just like I slept, for a good 2 days and then it got my energy back. And I'm pretty sure it was Octagon Hall that did it. That just kind of sucked the life out of me.
Yeah, we call it the pear flu.
Yeah,
I made it happen.
It does.
Yeah, it's insane. So let's talk a little bit about some of the places that y'all have investigated. You mentioned Old South Pittsburgh Hospital. Y'all were just there a few days ago, actually.
Yes, yeah, we were just there this past Saturday.
We got home yesterday.
Yeah, we got home yesterday around 7-ish, 7:30 in the morning. Stayed up before 26 hours by the time we got home.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the paranormal hangover is real too.
Oh yeah, it was insane. It has been a while since we've pulled something like that where we had to drive, take a 3.5 hour drive back home as soon as we got done. But we just did Old South Pittsburgh. Before that, we did a private client. She had a antique store. That was interesting. And then let's see, before that was I almost said Wildwood, but that was last year. We've done Wildwood Sanitarium in New York. We've done the Hinsdale House in New York, the Gill House in Ohio, the Monroe House in Indiana. We've done some local places here in Mississippi that are not popular. Oh my goodness, words.
Popularly known.
Yeah, that word, that collection of words. No, like the Weston Schoolhouse. We've done Terry Beville's place in Tennessee. We've just done odd and end stuff. The caves here in Iuka, Mississippi. We've done them quite often. Been to Natchez, to the Adams County Jail.
How caves are interesting because I don't hear a lot of people investigating caves. I mean, everybody's Everybody's familiar with the Bell Witch Cave. I'm so over that story. I don't really want to get into it, but
Same.
What about the caves that y'all investigated? Because that I would imagine, especially for EVP and stuff like that, would have a unique set of challenges to investigate.
It really is. When you think of cave systems, I mean, this one it's big-ish. It's big to me, but it's not massive like the cave systems in Pennsylvania. But it's big. It's called the Chalk Mine Caves, and what it was just a little place on the side of the hill where they would go in there with dynamite, and that's where they collected their chalk from, and they'd put it on a boat and carry it out to the barge and transport it. So when you go into the cave itself, I mean, the opening of it may be 3 foot by 3 foot, and the cave inside stays 72 degrees all year round, no matter if it's 50 degrees outside or if it's 100 degrees outside. It stays about 70 to 72 degrees. It's extremely quiet, very quiet location. And you want to talk about EVPs, the only issue that we had was if you had to imagine what it's like if you could hear the outer space. That's what everything sounds like. It's just like a wind swirling, weird sound constantly. You know, whenever you used to, if you were next to your computer when you had dial-up and you had a phone call on your cell phone and you got near it and made that noise.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the static noise, you hear that with like wind rustling constantly. But the first couple of times we went there, we encountered a young lady that passed away in the area from a car accident. And she was very talkative. She liked to kind of yell at the other end of the cave, like, hello, I'm here, and like basically want you to play hide and seek. And then after that, we went back to the caves, and it's like the energy just changed. And I don't know if it was because of the spring or the summer solstice coming around, because we usually only investigated there in fall and winter.
A mixture of that, and during certain times of the year, high school kids kind of go down there, drink, party, and do their thing. So I think that kind of played a role in it too, because it's a very common thing for that.
Yeah, when it starts getting warm, a lot of kids decide to go down there. So then it got pretty quiet where we went down there. We really didn't get much of anything. And the last time that we went, something had, what did you call it? Like a giant just blob, basically. It's a non-human entity, but it's not a negative entity.
A glob was fine.
A glob was fine.
That's what I called it because I didn't know what else to call it.
Yeah, she's just like, it's not intelligent. I mean, and it's just kind of like there. Like it's just like very floppy feel to it. Like it's just like it's there. It's some kind of a creature that decided to take residence here. Not really sure why, or if somebody tried to, because a lot of kids, like you said, kids go down there to use Ouija boards or to, try to cast spells. She's like, I don't know if it was like they were trying to bring something else forth and they ended up with this giant blob of a mess, but it don't belong here. It's new. It's just kind of there. But we haven't been out there in a while. We really need to go back.
We do.
Just to switch gears, because we were talking about caves, we had really stopped investigating for a while because I was focusing on the cryptid side of things. And at the time, Butch Kowski, he was still alive, and I was being mentored underneath him and Von Strickler's team for a little bit because I wanted to research the Dogman phenomenon up in Pennsylvania. And so I was talking with Butch, and he was telling me anything and everything that he could and telling me what to look for and such. And we had went back. That's the last time I went back to the caves because I was gearing up to go up north because I was going to do the cave systems with them. So I just wanted to make sure that I could, if something were to happen, I took proper precautions, basically. And I had everything I needed and such. But we've heard so many weird stories at those caves, but we've never validated any of it. Like, I've never seen anything spray painted on the walls that were true satanic symbols or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation for another day, is people and symbols and
right.
misjudging what they actually are.
Well, and like you were saying, there's this blob of energy there, but it's just something, that it's just energy. It's not anything in particular. It doesn't necessarily, have a consciousness or anything like
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't a cousin. It was just there. I mean, you could feel that something was there, but it's just like a confusion vibe. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is that? Why?
Yeah. Just some sort of thought form of some sort that people have manifested. Yeah.
Yeah, just like, I'm so confused. Why? What? Huh? Okay, whatever. You go about your day.
Well, at least they didn't manifest a demon or something,
I mean, right? Yeah. Like, I think, I am more scared for somebody to tell me that they have fairies at their house than I am about a demon.
Yeah.
Just because of the phase that we have dealt with. I don't know. Alyssa's just kind of looking at me like, I don't know about that.
Well, I don't know. That one, and we did that one particular one comes to mind that was just like, oh my goodness. And I've never been to a private client like, okay, is this ever going to end? Like, are we ever truly going to be able to leave, or we feel like this person is safe if we do leave?
Yeah, that was our
that night was now it was a forever long night.
For anybody that thinks that fairies are just like Tinkerbells,
yeah,
no, ma'am, no sir. They are to me way worse than dealing with anything that is like a negative entity, or if you wanted to go off on a limb and say that it was demonic by nature. No, these little turds can be just insane. And you want to talk about some tricksters. Fae folk are tricksters, and they are, if you don't know what you're doing, they are just about impossible to get rid of.
Yeah, and the Fae folk, we could do a whole another hour just talking about fairy folk, and
right.
Yeah, and because a lot of listeners are probably like, "What are you talking about? Fairies are real?" Well,
yeah, they are, and I hope you never encounter them, because it could either go one of two ways.
Yeah,
when it's good, it's good, and when it's bad, you're screwed.
They are annoying and pesky and evil.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's so many phenomena that can be attributed to the fairies, especially. I think a lot of these missing people, the missing 411 stuff, without getting a deep dive into that, the whole fairy thing makes a lot of sense for a lot of those people just disappearing off the face of the earth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. We could probably do another 8 hours on just the missing 411.
Oh yeah,
and the national parks.
Yeah.
I am invested for that.
Yeah, I've had my buddy.
That is my jam.
I've had my buddy Steve Stockton on, I think 4 times now, and we've talked about it. I know 3 of the shows we have because we've talked about his volume. He's got 3 volumes out so far about it, and he also narrates for the Missing Person and Mysteries YouTube channel. I think they just hit like 200,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's my buddy Steve. Steve is awesome. He's a Tennessee boy. He's from Knoxville.
Wow.
Oh, that's where the people we investigated with this past weekend were out of Knoxville.
Yeah,
so that's cool.
Steve lives out in Oregon now, but he's talking about moving back to Tennessee, so I hope he does. But yeah, he's I would say, I know David Paulotti's kind of made the missing 411 stuff, kind of brought it to the forefront, but I would say Steve and them are way more involved than I think David Paulotti's.
Yeah, David Paulotti's, I mean, he put the information that he spent years, he put it out, and then that was it.
Right.
He didn't really do any more research after that.
Yeah.
And then you have, people that kind of, like you said, he did bring it to the forefront, but then you have people that kind of took it over and took it to the next step.
Yeah.
Of, okay, let's go there.
But Steve talks about fairies as well a lot. And then somebody else that does shows with Steve actually on YouTube, Gemma Jade, she actually has a book out about fairies and stories of people's encounters with them and how they're not very nice, like you were saying.
Yeah, if you deal with the unseelie, I mean, you have your seelie, your unseelies, and you have your uncourted ones. And, the sealies, they're the better of the fae folk. They more or less have their shit together, and you're not going to get much mischief from them.
Yeah.
But, of course, you got bad apples in that court. And then you have your unseelies, which are going to be, the ones like out in Finland, like their federal laws that they have of, if you hear this or see this, don't go near it, turn around and walk away slowly. That's because of their unseelie court. And then you have the ones that were kicked out of the court, and they're just kind of independent, and they're just there and they do whatever they want to. So you have to be careful for sure.
To this day, over in some of those countries, they move roads around fairy outcroppings and things like that because they take it so seriously. So yeah, it's very much a thing. I know there are a lot of Americans that would kind of turn their nose up at it, but Jim and Jay's book is called Missing the Faith Theory, and it's pretty interesting. I've been trying to get her on the show, but our schedules haven't lined up.
Awesome.
But
is her book on Amazon?
It is. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I believe if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. But yeah, check out Missing the Faith Theory from Jim and Jade, and then check out all of Steve Stockton stuff. He talks a lot about fairies too, like I said. Folks, just because you've never seen it or experienced it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Right.
You know, and we don't know, there's no experts in the paranormal, and so we don't know where it ends. I mean, there's so much more, you know, beyond us than we could probably even comprehend.
Absolutely. And that's what me and Alyssa tell everybody. We get both reactions. We get the, oh, you guys are just babies in this. And then we get the, oh my God, you guys are really in this.
Yeah.
And to me, no matter if you've been in this for 5 months or if you've been in this for 50 years, you're always learning something new, or at least you should be.
Oh, yeah.
And just this year, I've learned so much about the paranormal, and my thought process is constantly changing because I encounter something new. Like as soon as I, think that I even have it figured out, here comes something else. And I'm like, well, that blows that theory out the water.
Yeah.
Or, well, that makes me question this a lot more now. It's always changing, always different.
I think also when I think I've finally answered a question that I've had about the paranormal, it just opens up a can of worms to 1,000 more questions.
Exactly. I mean, absolutely.
Well, I thank y'all for coming on here. We've gone for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Man, time flew.
Yeah, it did. But I appreciate y'all coming on and chatting. I'll have to definitely have y'all back on, and we'll talk some more about the paranormal. Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, we appreciate you allowing us to do this podcast. I mean, I've had a lot of fun. It's been awesome.
Yeah. That's why I want to have you on. Like I said, whenever we talked the first time after I sent y'all the email, I was like, oh, I definitely have to have them on, because y'all just sounded interesting. And then hearing y'all's origin stories, that's why I ask, how people got their start, because you never know what kind of, interesting stories, and everybody has their own story about how they got into the paranormal. And so, but y'all have been great. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you if they want to find you on the social medias and all that good stuff?
They can find us on Facebook at Southern Ascension. We also have an email that they can reach us at southern.ascension@gmail.com. And then the phone number that's on our page, we can be reached 24/7. So just, if I don't answer the first time, then just keep calling, I'll answer.
Yeah.
We also have, if you're up north, we have a northern chapter called Northern Ascension. Those are a lot of our great friends that we have came to love and mentor, and they're doing great things up north as well. So if you're south of the border, you holler at us. If you're north of the border, just give Northern Ascension a buzz.
And also, if people need help, even if you can't help them, you can get them in touch with people that can.
Absolutely, yeah. If we cannot help you, or if we feel like it's not something that we are best suited for, we have teams all around the world and all around the nation that we can reach out to and get you the help that you need.
All right. Thank you so much, Caden and Allisa. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
All right, everybody. Y'all stay safe out there. We'll see you next time. Have a good day. Join us next time for a new episode of The Unseen Paranormal. Until then, head over to the Unseen Paranormal Lounge on Facebook for all the latest updates and discussions about the show. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, or at unseenparanormalpodcast.com. And please rate, review, share, and subscribe to help more people discover the show. The Unseen Paranormal Podcast is proud to be the ambassador for paranormal for Verbal.com. A big thank you to my friend Chris Lips for the awesome theme music. You can find more of his music on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. And as always, thank you for listening.
The other side.